Here's a gripping tale of betrayal, deception, and unexpected consequences. The perfect illusion. It started with a whisper, a careless murmur into the wrong ear. I never considered myself the jealous type. Emma, my wife of 10 years, was everything to me. Kind, intelligent, breathtakingly beautiful. I thought we had the kind of love that could weather any storm. Until the storm came knocking. It was a Friday night when I first suspected something was wrong. Emma had been coming home late, more often her phone screen tilting away whenever I entered the room. It wasn't paranoia, it was instinct. That gut-wrenching feeling when you realize the person you trust most might be hiding something. I had to know. So I did something I never thought I would. I followed her. The discovery. She told me she was working late, but her car wasn't at the office. It was parked in front of the Blue Orchid, an upscale hotel on the other side of town. My stomach twisted. I waited in the shadows. 20 minutes later, she emerged, her hand clutching another man's arm, laughing in a way that used to be reserved for me. Rage burned in my veins, but I wasn't reckless. Not yet. I pulled out my phone and snapped a few pictures. Evidence. The man. Jonathan Pierce. A so-called friend of mine. I clenched my fists. This wasn't just betrayal. It was war. The confrontation, I didn't rush into it. No. That would have been too easy. Instead, I orchestrated something much more satisfying. The next night, I invited Emma to dinner at our favorite restaurant. She showed up, looking stunning in a red dress. I played along, acting the doting husband. Halfway through the meal, I casually placed my phone on the table, screen facing up. The pictures of her and Jonathan displayed in crisp detail. Her face drained of color. "Something wrong, sweetheart?" I asked, my voice eerily calm. Her lips parted, but no words came out. "Go ahead," I said. "Explain." She stammered, reaching for an excuse, but I wasn't interested. "Save it," I cut her off. "You weren't careful, Emma, and now you're going to see what consequences look like." Exposing the truth, I had one last card to play, and it involved Jonathan. I texted him from Emma's phone, luring him to a bar downtown. When he walked in expecting her, he found me instead. "Surprised?" I asked, swirling my whiskey. He stiffened. "Look, I can explain." "Don't." I set my phone down, this time playing a recording of Emma confessing everything during our earlier dinner date. His face paled. "You destroyed a marriage, Jonathan." "But the real tragedy?" "You were just a pawn." He frowned. "What do you mean?" I leaned in. "Emma didn't love you. She used you. I found the messages on her phone. She was planning to cut you off after she got what she wanted." His hands shook. "You're lying." "Am I?" I pulled out my final move, a printed chat log where Emma called him a temporary thrill and laughed about how easy he was to manipulate. His face crumbled. He stormed out without another word. And Emma? I left the divorce. Papers on the kitchen counter that night, along with a single note. Jonathan stormed out of the bar, his hands trembling as he clutched the printed chat logs. I watched him go, sipping my whiskey with satisfaction. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Not yet. Emma was a master manipulator. I had exposed her, yes, but something in the pit of my stomach told me that she wouldn't just roll over and accept defeat. I was right. The reversal, I returned home late that night to find Emma sitting on the couch, her arms crossed, her face pale but composed. She wasn't crying, she wasn't begging, she was smiling. "You think you've won, don't you?" she said, tilting her head. I frowned. "The divorce papers are on the counter, Emma. We're done." She let out a soft chuckle. "Oh, sweetheart, you always thought you were so clever." Something about the way she said it sent a chill down my spine. Then she held up her phone and played a recording. My voice. I'm going to destroy Jonathan. He deserves to lose everything. I froze. Emma tapped the screen. And here's another. 1. I followed her. I took pictures. I set him up. She had recorded me, carefully edited clips, twisted just enough to sound incriminating. Your mistake, darling, she continued, standing up and walking toward me, was underestimating me. You thought you could control the narrative, expose me and walk away clean? She smiled. Now, I wonder how your company would feel if these recordings made their way to HR. How Jonathan's wife would react if I played these out of context. I clenched my jaw. You wouldn't. Her smile widened. Wouldn't I? She had me. She had a weapon, but she had no idea what I was capable of. The checkmate within the checkmate. I exhaled slowly, stepping closer. Impressive, I admitted. But you made one mistake. She raised an eyebrow. And what's that? I smirked. You think I didn't plan for this? I reached into my pocket and pulled out a USB drive. Emma's face faltered for the first time. This, I said, twirling it between my fingers, contains the full, unedited versions of those recordings, along with video footage of you entering and leaving that hotel with Jonathan. Oh, and a few more. Damning texts from your phone, her smile vanished. I leaned in, my voice barely above a whisper. You try to use those recordings against me? I burn you to the ground. Your family, your job, your reputation. You lose everything. She swallowed hard. You're bluffing. I chuckled. Am I? I tossed the USB onto the table and pulled out my phone. One click, and everything goes to Jonathan's wife, your boss, and even your parents. Her breath hitched. You wanted a game, Emma? I whispered. You should have learned the rules before playing. She sat down heavily, her face finally showing what I had been waiting for. Defeat. You bastard, she muttered. I picked up the divorce papers and dropped them into her lap. Sign them, I said, or I send everything. She hesitated for a second too long, so I started to press send. Wait, she blurted out. My thumb hovered over the screen. Tick-tock. Her hand trembled as she grabbed a pen and signed. The moment she finished, I snatched up the papers, tucked them into my jacket, and turned toward the door. Where are you going? She asked, her voice hollow. I smiled over my shoulder. To start my new life, I said. Without you. And then I walked out. Epilogue. The final move. The next morning, I received a text. Jonathan's wife had filed for divorce. Smiled. One cheater down, then another text. Emma had quit her job. She knew what I had on her. She knew she was finished. And me? I was free. Checkmate. The Perfect Illusion. Part 3. The twist. No one saw coming. Freedom felt good. For the first time in years, I wasn't looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next lie to surface. Emma was out of my life, her affair exposed, her career in ruins. Jonathan's wife had left him, taking half his assets in the divorce. It was justice. Or so I thought. Because sometimes the past doesn't stay buried. The anonymous message a month after the divorce was finalized, I was settling into my new apartment, enjoying the quiet. Then one night, my phone buzzed. Unknown. Number. You think you won. But the game isn't over. I stared at the message. At first I thought it was Emma, desperate for revenge. But she had gone silent after signing the papers. If it wasn't her, then who? Before I could reply, another message came through. A photo. My heart stopped. It was me, standing outside the Blue Orchid Hotel on the night I caught them. Someone had been watching me. Then, the final text. Meet me, midnight, Warehouse 17, or everything goes public. A shiver ran down my spine. I had been so careful, covered my tracks. Who the hell was this? Only one way to find out: the warehouse midnight. The air was thick with tension as I parked my car outside an abandoned warehouse on the industrial side of town. The place was dark, except for a single dim light flickering inside. I stepped in cautiously, my fists clenched. A figure stood in the shadows, and when they stepped into the light, my blood ran cold. Jonathan. I hadn't seen him since the bar. He looked different. Haggard, unshaven, eyes dark with something I couldn't quite place. "You," I muttered. He smirked. "Surprised? How did you get those pictures?" I demanded. Jonathan chuckled, pulling out a cigarette. "You underestimated me just like you underestimated Emma. Did you really think you were the only one playing a long game?" I stayed silent. "You think you destroyed me?" He took a slow drag. "My wife took my money. My job fired me. But I still had one thing left: revenge." I clenched my jaw. "What do you want?" His smile widened. "I want you to suffer." Before I could react, he tossed a folder onto the table. It slid to a stop inches from my hand. I opened it, my stomach dropping. Inside were printed emails, text messages, financial records, all fabricated, all designed to make it look like I was the one having an affair. My breath caught. "These," Jonathan said, tapping the folder, "are already in an email draft. With one click, they go to your boss, your friends, hell, even your family." I forced myself to stay calm. "And what do you want in return?" His eyes gleamed. "A deal." "The devil's bargain." Jonathan leaned forward. "Emma ruined both of us. We can't undo that, but we can make sure she never rebuilds her life." I narrowed my eyes. "I already destroyed her." He chuckled darkly. "No, you humiliated her. That's different. I'm talking about ruin." I hesitated. "She's trying to start over," he continued. "New city, new job, new fiancé." My head snapped up. "Fiancé?" Jonathan smirked. "Rich guy, old money. She's spinning the same lies all over again." I exhaled sharply. "So what do you want?" His voice dropped to a whisper. "We work together to destroy her. Completely." The choice. I stared at Jonathan. I had wanted revenge. I had gotten it. But this was something else. This was war. If I walked away, Jonathan would release the fake evidence against me. My reputation? Gone. My career? Over. If I agreed, Emma would never see it coming. I took a deep breath. Then I smiled. "Tell me everything." Jonathan smirked. He could see the gears turning in my head, the battle between morality and vengeance. But morality had no place here, not anymore. Emma had ruined both of us. Now it was her turn. I leaned in. "Tell me everything." Jonathan exhaled, flicking his cigarette to the ground. "She moved to Chicago. New name, new job, new fiancé, some tech millionaire named William Kensington. Guy's loaded, old money. But here's the kicker." He slid his phone across the table. A photo. Emma. Smiling, wrapped around a man in an expensive suit. "She's doing it all over again," Jonathan said, shaking his head. "Spinning lies, playing the perfect fiancé, setting herself up for another cushy life." He let out a low chuckle. "I bet she's already planning how to bleed him dry." I studied the picture. Emma looked happy. Not the fake kind she used to show me when she was hiding something. This was different, good. That would make her fall even better. "What's the plan?" I asked. Jonathan grinned. "We make sure she loses everything." Step 1. The seed of doubt. A week later, I was sitting in a high-end coffee shop in Chicago, waiting. Jonathan had done his research. William Kensington came here every Wednesday morning. Right on schedule, a black Bentley pulled up outside. William stepped out, flanked by a personal assistant and a bodyguard. He was tall, well-dressed, with the effortless confidence of a man who had never been betrayed. Perfect. As he placed his order, I made my move. "William Kensington?" I said, feigning surprise. He turned, polite but cautious. "Yes?" I offered my hand. "I don't think we've met. I'm Ryan Carter. I work in cybersecurity. I think we have a mutual acquaintance." William raised an eyebrow. "Oh?" I hesitated, just long enough to make it seem like I was struggling with something. Then I sighed. "Emma." His face barely changed, but I saw the flicker in his eyes. I shook my head. I'm sorry. Maybe I've got the wrong person. It's just... I was married to her." Silence. Then William set down his coffee. "You were married to Emma?" I nodded, rubbing the back of my neck. "Look, man, I don't want to interfere in your life, but if you're serious about her, you should know the truth." His jaw tightened. "What truth?" I pulled out my phone, opened a folder, the photos. Emma. In front of the blue orchid. Emma. Holding on to Jonathan's arm. Emma. Kissing another man. Not her husband. William's eyes darkened. "When was this?" I exhaled. 2 months before our divorce. A muscle in his jaw twitched. I placed a hand on his shoulder. "I loved her, man. Thought she was everything. Turns out, she was playing me the entire time. Just be careful. People don't change." I turned to leave, but before I stepped outside, I glanced back. William was staring at the pictures, his hands clenched into fists. The first seed was planted. Step 2. The letter. Few days later, Jonathan mailed William a package. No return address. Inside, a flash drive with recordings of Emma sweet-talking Jonathan, calling him her escape plan. A copy of the chat logs where she bragged about manipulating men. A single note. "She fooled us. Don't let her fool you." Jonathan and I waited. And then 3 days later, Emma's life exploded. The downfall started with whispers. William stopped posting pictures of Emma. His friends stopped acknowledging her. Then Emma was uninvited from a high-profile gala. Then she lost her job. William pulled some strings. Then the engagement ring was gone. And finally, one night outside their penthouse, William confronted her. Jonathan and I watched from across the street. We couldn't hear what was being said, but we saw it. Emma sobbing, reaching for him. William shaking his head, tossing something to the ground. Emma screaming. Then the slap. Not from William, from her. She turned and stormed into the night, alone. Epilogue, the final goodbye. A week later, I got another anonymous text. "Unknown number, satisfied?" I smirked and typed back, "Me. Are you?" Unknown number? She got what she deserved. I nodded to myself. Emma had played her game, but in the end, she had lost. I turned off my phone and walked away, never looking back. The end, or is it? Jonathan smirked. He could see the gears turning in my head, the battle between morality and vengeance. But morality had no place here, not anymore. Emma had ruined both of us. Now it was her turn. I leaned in. "Tell me everything." Jonathan exhaled, flicking his cigarette to the ground. "She moved to Chicago. New name, new job, new fiancé. Some tech millionaire named William Kensington. Guy's loaded, old money. But here's the kicker." He slid his phone across the table. A photo. Emma. Smiling, wrapped around a man in an expensive suit. "She's doing it all over again," Jonathan said, shaking his head. "Spinning lies, playing the perfect fiancé, setting herself up for another cushy life." He let out a low chuckle. "I bet she's already planning how to bleed him dry." I studied the picture. Emma looked happy. Not the fake kind she used to show me when she was hiding something. This was different. Good. That would make her fall even better. What's the plan? I asked. Jonathan grinned. We make sure she loses everything. Step 1. The seed of doubt. A week later, I was sitting in a high-end coffee shop in Chicago waiting. Jonathan had done his research. William Kensington came here every Wednesday morning. Right on schedule, a black Bentley pulled up outside. William stepped out, flanked by a personal assistant and a bodyguard. He was tall, well-dressed, with the effortless confidence of a man who had never been betrayed. Perfect. As he placed his order, I made my move. "William Kensington?" I said, feigning surprise. He turned, polite but cautious. "Yes?" I offered my hand. "I don't think we've met. I'm Ryan Carter. I work in cybersecurity. I think we have a mutual acquaintance." William raised an eyebrow. "Oh?" I hesitated, just long enough to make it seem like I was struggling with something. Then I sighed. "Emma." His face barely changed, but I saw the flicker in his eyes. I shook my head. I'm sorry. Maybe I've got the wrong person. It's just... I was married to her." Silence. Then William set down his coffee. "You were married to Emma?" I nodded, rubbing the back of my neck. "Look, man, I don't want to interfere in your life, but if you're serious about her, you should know the truth." His jaw tightened. "What truth?" I pulled out my phone, opened a folder. The photos, Emma. In front of the blue orchid, Emma holding on to Jonathan's arm, Emma. Kissing another man, not her husband. William's eyes darkened. "When was this?" I exhaled. 2 months before our divorce." A muscle in his jaw twitched. I placed a hand on his shoulder. "I loved her, man. Thought she was everything. Turns out she was playing me the entire time. Just be careful. People don't change." I turned to leave, but before I stepped outside, I glanced back. William was staring at the pictures, his hands clenched into fists. The first seed was planted. Step 2. The letter. A few days later, Jonathan mailed William a package. No return address. Inside, a flash drive with recordings of Emma sweet-talking Jonathan, calling him her escape plan. A copy of the chat logs where she bragged about manipulating men. A single note. "She fooled us. Don't let her fool you." Jonathan and I waited. And then, 3 days later, Emma's life exploded. The downfall, it started with whispers. William stopped posting pictures of Emma. His friends stopped acknowledging her. Then, Emma was uninvited from a high-profile gala. Then, she lost her job. William pulled some strings. Then, the engagement ring was gone. And finally, one night, outside their penthouse, William confronted her. Jonathan and I watched from across the street. We couldn't hear what was being said, but we saw it. Emma, sobbing, reaching for him. William, shaking his head, tossing something to the ground. Emma screaming. Then the slap, not from William, from her. She turned and stormed into the night. Alone. Epilogue, the final goodbye. A week later, I got another anonymous text. "Unknown number, satisfied?" I smirked and typed back, "Me, are you?" Unknown number. She got what she deserved. I nodded to myself. Emma had played her game, but in the end, she had lost. I turned off my phone and walked away, never looking back. The end. Or is it? The Perfect Illusion. Part 5. The Queen's Gambit. For a while, I thought it was over. Emma was ruined, cast out of the life she had meticulously built, abandoned by the rich fiancé she had planned to manipulate. Jonathan and I had taken everything from her. But here's the thing about people like Emma. They don't go down without a fight. And neither do I. The return. It had been 3 months since Emma's downfall. I had moved on, built a new life, started dating again. Then, one night, as I was leaving work, I spotted a familiar silhouette leaning against my car. Emma, dressed in black, lips painted blood red, eyes sharp as daggers. I stopped, my instincts screaming at me. She wasn't here to beg, she was here to play. "Miss me?" she asked, her voice like silk over poison. I crossed my arms. "No, what do you want?" she smirked. "Oh, Ryan, always so serious. Can't a woman just say hello to her ex-husband?" I chuckled. "Cut the act, Emma. You lost. What's your play here?" Her eyes darkened, and for the first time I saw it. A storm brewing beneath the surface. "I know what you did," she said softly. I didn't flinch. "You're going to have to be more specific." She pulled out her phone and tapped the screen. A recording played. Jonathan's voice. "We make sure she loses everything." I kept my face unreadable. Emma tilted her head. "Jonathan's an idiot, Ryan. I knew he'd crack first." She stepped closer, her perfume intoxicating but dangerous. "What? Did you promise him revenge, redemption, or were you just using him like I did?" She was baiting me, so I smiled. "You seem upset." She laughed. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm beyond upset. You think you ruined me? You think you took me down?" She leaned in, her lips inches from my ear. "I've barely begun." A shiver ran down my spine, but I refused to let it show. "Stay out of my life, Emma," I warned. She pulled back, flashing that infuriatingly confident smirk. "Oh, Ryan, you don't get it, do you?" She tapped my chest lightly, her nails dragging across the fabric of my shirt. "I'm already in it." And with that, she turned on her heel and disappeared into the night, leaving me with a single, undeniable truth. Emma wasn't done. And for the first time, I wondered if I had underestimated her. The counterattack, the next morning, Jonathan called. "She came to see me," he said, his voice tense. "She knows, Ryan." I exhaled. "I know. She found me too. She has the recording." I figured. Jonathan cursed under his breath. "I don't like this. She's got something planned." "Of course she does," I said, rubbing my temples. "But so do we." I wasn't about to let Emma regain control. Not now. Not ever. The trap Emma was a survivor. That was her greatest strength and her greatest weakness. She thrived on manipulation, but she needed an opportunity to do it. She wouldn't come after us blindly. No, she'd set the board first, so I decided to move first. Through a few old contacts, I arranged a meeting. I knew Emma would be desperate to rebuild her life, and I knew exactly where she would go, back to the world of power and money. The meeting was with a venture capitalist firm, a big one. They were looking for a PR director, someone with charm, wit, and connections. Someone like Emma. She wouldn't be able to resist, and when she walked into that office ready to sell them on the illusion of Emma Kensington 2.0, she would find something waiting for her. Me. The final face-off Emma walked. Into the high-rise conference room dressed to kill. Black heels, a navy blue power suit, hair in soft waves framing her face like a halo. But when she saw me sitting at the conference table, her mask slipped, just for a second. Then she recovered, smiling as if nothing had happened. "Ryan. What a surprise," I smirked. Small world. The executives, 3 men and 1 woman, looked between us curiously. "You two know each other?" one of them asked. Emma turned to them, all charm and warmth. "Oh, Ryan and I go way back." She sat down, crossing her legs. "I had no idea he was involved in this firm." "Didn't I mention it?" I said casually. "I consult. For them. They wanted my opinion on some new candidates, you know, background checks and all that." Emma's nails dug into her thigh, but her smile never wavered. "Wonderful," she said sweetly. "I love a good character reference." The game was on, and this time, only one of us was walking away unscathed. Emma was good. damn good. Sitting across from her in that high-rise office, I could see the wheels turning behind her sharp blue eyes. She was already recalculating, rewriting the narrative, figuring out how to twist this situation in her favor. But she didn't know one thing. I came prepared. The executives were watching us, sensing something beneath the surface. It was time to put on a show. I leaned back in my chair, relaxed. Emma's resume is impressive, no doubt. A real people person. Knows how to persuade. She smiled, playing along. Flattery, Ryan? I'm touched. I ignored her. But, as someone who's worked closely with her before, I think it's only fair to be honest. I turned to the executives. You should know that Emma has a history of complications in her previous workplaces. Emma's fingers tightened around the armrest, but she kept her voice smooth. I'd love to hear what complications you're referring to, dear. I pulled out my phone, tapped a few buttons, and slid it across the table. Why don't you listen for yourself? The CEO pressed play, and Jonathan's voice filled the room. We make sure she loses everything. Then another, clip Emma's own voice, bragging, manipulating, talking about how easy it was to fool men. How she had planned to milk William Kensington dry, the color drained from her face. The executives listened, frowning. The woman at the table crossed her arms. Ms. Kensington, she said coldly. Care to explain? Emma's lips parted slightly, but for the first time in all the years I had known her, she had nothing to say. She lost. The final blow. Emma knew there was no talking her way out of this. She stood slowly, smoothing out her skirt, regaining her composure. She turned to me, voice like steel. You planned this? I smiled. What gave it away? Her gaze flickered to the executives, then back to me. You always thought you were smarter than me? I shrugged. Maybe. But I know one thing for sure. I leaned in close, dropping my voice so only she could hear. This time, I win. Emma inhaled sharply, then did something I didn't expect. She laughed, low, quiet, dangerous. Then she turned to the executives and said, Thank you for your time. Clearly, I won't be working here. She didn't wait for a response. She walked out, gone, for good. Aftermath, a week later, I heard through the grapevine that Emma had left Chicago. No job, no rich fiancé, no allies. Jonathan sent me a text. Jonathan, she's done. Me. She should be. Jonathan, you sure about that? I didn't answer. Because deep down, I knew the truth. People like Emma, they always find a way to survive. The end. Or is it? For a few weeks, life felt peaceful. Emma was gone. No more mind games, no more manipulation. Jonathan and I had won. Or so I thought. Then, one evening, I received a letter. No return address. I almost tossed it into the trash until I saw the handwriting, Emma's. My stomach tightened. I ripped it open and unfolded the single sheet inside. Ryan, did you really think it would be that easy? You took your best shot. I'll admit, it was impressive. But you should know by now, I don't lose. You took my job, my fiancé, my reputation. But you forgot one thing. I don't need any of those to rebuild. I always land on my feet. You, however, you have something to lose. You're comfortable now, aren't you? A new life. A fresh start. You think you're safe? You're not. Enjoy the peace while it lasts, darling, because soon I'll be back. And next time I won't just play the game, I'll own it. XOXO, Emma A. Chill ran down my spine. I should have felt anger or fear. But instead, I felt something else entirely, excitement, because if Emma wanted to play again, I'd be ready. Emma's letter sat on my desk, taunting me. She was out there, plotting, waiting. I had burned her world to the ground, but I underestimated one thing. Emma doesn't stay buried. She comes back stronger, smarter, more dangerous than before. The question wasn't if she'd strike. It was when, and this time, I wasn't going to wait. I was going to find her first. The Hunt Jonathan wasn't happy when I called. "You're insane," he muttered, taking a drag from his cigarette. "You won. Ryan, let it go." I leaned against my car, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. "You don't get it, do you? She's not done. She's coming for me. I need to know where she is before she makes her move." Jonathan exhaled, thinking. "Fine. I'll ask around. But if this backfires, don't say I didn't warn you." Click. He hung up. And now, the game had truly begun. A ghost in the system, Emma was smart. She wouldn't leave an obvious trail, but everyone leaves something behind. I spent days searching, combing through old contacts, tracking whispers in the underground networks where people like Emma rebuild. Then finally, I found something. A wire transfer from an unknown account to a high-end apartment in New York City. She was there, and she wasn't hiding. She was waiting, face to face. The doorman at the luxury high-rise barely glanced at me as I walked in. A little cash got me access to the penthouse floor. I knocked once, twice. Then the door swung open, and there she was, Emma, wrapped in silk, a glass of wine in hand, eyes glowing with amusement. "Ryan," she purred. "Took you long enough?" I stepped inside, shutting the door behind me. "You sent the letter," she smirked. "Of course. I knew you'd come looking. You can't help yourself." I studied her, the way she moved, the way she watched. Me, Emma was playing again. But what was her angle? "What do you want?" I asked. She took a slow sip of wine, then set the glass down. "A partnership," I laughed. "You're joking." "Am I?" She stepped closer, her voice smooth as honey. "You beat me, Ryan. I respect that. But imagine what we could do together." My pulse quickened. I should have said no, walked away, ended it, once and for all. But instead, I whispered the one word that would change everything. "Tell me more." Emma smiled, and just like that, the game began again. Emma's smile was slow, knowing. She had me. Not because I trusted her, but because I was curious. And Emma? She thrived on curiosity. She stepped past me, her silk robe gliding against her skin, and poured another glass of wine. "Sit," she said. "I didn't. I don't work with liars," I said flatly. She smirked, taking a sip. "Ryan, if that were true, we'd both be out of business." She had a point. I stayed standing, arms crossed. "What's your angle?" Emma leaned against the counter, watching me, calculating. "I've been rebuilding, quietly. But power, real power, it takes more than just charm and strategy." She tilted her head. "It takes a partner." I laughed. "You must be desperate if you're coming to me." She smiled. "You don't see it, do you?" "See what?" "We're the same," I scoffed. "I don't manipulate and destroy people for fun." Emma set her glass down and stepped closer. Too close. "No, Ryan. You do it for justice. I do it for survival." Her voice lowered, smooth as silk. "But either way, we both win." I didn't flinch. "What's the job?" Her lips curved. "A takedown." "Of who?" She turned, walked to a sleek black folder on the table, and slid it toward me. "Someone worse than both of us." I hesitated, then flipped it open. The first thing I saw was William Kensington's face. My blood ran cold. Emma's voice was almost a whisper. "He ruined me." I looked up, and for the first time since I'd met her, I saw something real in her eyes. Rage. "This time," she said, "we take him down together." I exhaled slowly. I should have walked away. I didn't. Instead, I extended my hand. Emma took it. The deal was sealed, and just like that, the greatest con of all time began. Emma's hand was warm in mine, steady, dangerous. I should have let go. Instead, I squeezed. Just enough to show her that this time I wasn't playing by her rules. We weren't partners. We weren't allies. We were two predators hunting the same prey. And William Kensington was about to learn exactly what that meant. The target I spent the next few days digging. William Kensington wasn't just rich, he was untouchable. Political ties, offshore accounts, blackmail material on half the city. Emma had been a fool to think she could con him. But now she wanted revenge, and I was about to give it to her, on my terms. Emma's plan: we met in a dimly lit bar, the air thick with whiskey and secrets. Emma slid into the booth across from me, crossing her legs, eyes gleaming. "Tell me you have something," I smirked. "I have everything," she leaned in. And I don't trust you," she chuckled. "Smart man, but that doesn't change the fact that we need each other." I sighed, then pulled out my phone. William's got a weakness, a big one. I turned the screen toward her. Her eyes widened. "That's his mistress," I finished. "And guess who's been funneling money into a secret account under her name?" Emma grinned like a cat with a trapped mouse. "Tell me you can get access." I leaned back. "Already did," she exhaled, running a hand through her hair. "Then we're in business." I watched her. "We do this my way. No double-crossing, no surprises." Emma tilted her head, her smile slow and wicked. "Oh, Ryan," she whispered. "Where's the fun in that?" The con begins. Taking down William Kensington meant playing a long game. Emma was bait. I was the trap. And William? He was already caught. It started small. Emma accidentally ran into him at an elite gala, laughed at his jokes, touched his arm just enough to make him wonder. 2 weeks later, they were having drinks. 3 weeks later, he was texting her at midnight. I watched it all unfold. I knew how this story ended. Emma would pull him in, I would pull the rug out, and William Kensington would lose everything. The twist: the night before our final move, Emma called me. "Change of plans," she said. I frowned. "No changes. We hit him tomorrow, just like we agreed." Silence. Then, her voice, soft, almost hesitant. "I think I want to keep him." My grip tightened on my phone. "Excuse me?" Emma sighed. "Think about it. Ryan. He's powerful. Connected. If I play this right, I could have everything." "You can't be serious." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Don't I deserve a win?" I closed my eyes. "You said you wanted revenge." She exhaled. "I did. But power is so much better." And just like that, I knew Emma had played me. From the very start. Checkmate. The next night, William Kensington received an email from me. It contained everything, every recording, every text, every lie Emma had spun. By morning, Emma Kensington was locked out of his accounts, out of his life. She called me, furious. "You bastard." I smiled, sipping my coffee. "Come on, Emma, you should have known." Her voice trembled. "Known what?" "That I always play the long game." Silence. Then, soft laughter. "Well played," she whispered. "I'll see you soon, Ryan." Click. The line went dead. I set my phone down, staring. At the city skyline, Emma was out there, and I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Emma was gone. Not in the literal sense. No, that would have been too easy. She had simply vanished from William Kensington's life, leaving no trace behind. But I knew better. Emma didn't disappear. She recalibrated, and that meant, sooner or later, she'd resurface. The question wasn't if, it was when. The warning 2 weeks passed. Then, a message, not a call, not a text, a handwritten note slipped under my door. It read, "Checkmate? Please, Ryan, we're only in the opening moves. No threats, no desperation, just a promise." She was coming back, and I had just made myself her next target. The setup Jonathan didn't like it. "You should leave this alone, man," he warned, swirling whiskey in his glass. "Emma's like a virus. You think you've wiped her out, but she's just mutating into something worse." I smirked. "That's what makes this fun." Jonathan shook his head. "You're enjoying this way too much." I didn't argue, because the truth was, he was right. Emma was the only person who had ever kept up with me, the only one who could lie as well as I could. And now we were at war. The first strike had happened at a charity gala, one of those expensive, champagne-fueled evenings where the wealthy pretended to care about the less fortunate. I was there for business. Not Emma, or so I thought. I was speaking to an investor when I saw her. Across the room, draped in black silk, holding a martini like a queen surveying her court, our eyes met. Emma smiled, a slow, knowing smile, and then she walked away. I followed. I found her on the balcony overlooking the city. "You're bold, I'll give you that," I said, stepping beside her. She smirked. "You sound surprised." "You should be in hiding." Emma turned to me, her blue eyes glittering. "Hiding is for people who lose. And darling, I don't lose." I laughed, softly. William would disagree. She exhaled, shaking her head. "William was a stepping stone. You were the real game." I tensed. "What does that mean?" She leaned in, close enough that I could smell her perfume. "It means," she whispered, "that I've been playing you this entire time." A shiver ran down my spine, because for the first time, I wasn't sure if she was lying. The truth. Unveiled Emma reached into her clutch and pulled out her phone. One tap, one swipe. Then she turned the screen toward me. It was an account balance. Foreign bank. The amount? $50 million. My stomach dropped. "What the hell is this?" Emma's voice was light. "A little something I set up using William's money before you sent that email." I clenched my jaw. "That's not possible," she laughed. "Ryan, I had contingency plans for my contingency plans. Did you really think I'd leave empty-handed?" I didn't answer, because she had won. Not the way I expected, not through manipulation or seduction. She had played me long before I even knew the game had begun. And now, she was untouchable. The last goodbye? Emma tucked her phone away and smiled. "I should thank you, really. Without you, I wouldn't have planned so carefully. You made me better, Ryan." I exhaled slowly. "So what now?" She tilted her head. "Now? Now I disappear. For real this time. And when I come back?" She stepped even closer, her breath warm against my skin. "You won't even see me coming." She kissed my cheek. Then she turned and walked away. I didn't stop her. I didn't chase. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure if I wanted to win anymore. Emma was gone. No trace. No whispers. Just vanished. And yet I felt her presence everywhere. Like a phantom in the dark, a shadow lingering in the corner of my vision, because I knew the truth. Emma didn't disappear. She was waiting. And if I had learned anything, it was that when Emma waited, she was planning. The whisper in the dark 3 months passed. I convinced myself that it was over. That Emma had taken her stolen fortune and vanished into some untouchable corner of the world. And then the email arrived. No sender, no subject, just a single attachment. I hesitated. My cursor hovered over the file. I clicked. It was a video, grainy. Security footage, a hotel lobby, a man at the front desk, tall, broad-shouldered, sharp suit, me. My blood ran cold. I watched as I approached the desk, slid a black card across the counter, and received a room key. Except I had never been there, and then a second figure entered the frame, a woman, black dress, red lips. Emma. She walked up beside me, beside the imposter, and took his arm. Smiled up at him. They disappeared into the elevator together. The video ended. I exhaled, slow and steady. Emma had just sent me a message. Someone was pretending to be me, and she wanted me to know. The trap Jonathan wasn't thrilled when I told him. Jesus, Ryan, he groaned, running a hand down his face. You're telling me your psycho ex is out there? With a fake version of you? I took a sip of whiskey. That's exactly what I'm telling you. He shook his head. And you're gonna chase this, aren't you? I smirked. Obviously. Jonathan cursed under his breath. But I didn't care. Because now, the game wasn't just about Emma. It was about who the hell was wearing my face. The doppelganger, it took weeks, but I finally tracked them to Paris. A high-end casino. A private suite. A man who looked exactly like me spending absurd amounts of money. And Emma? She was right there beside him, draped in diamonds and silk, playing the role of the devoted lover. I watched them from across the room, my heart pounding. And then, Emma turned. Her gaze locked onto mine, and she smiled. Not surprised, not caught, off guard. She had known I was coming, because she had lured me here. I had walked straight into her web, again. The final play, I confronted them in their suite. The fake me lounged on the couch, legs crossed, swirling a glass of brandy. Emma stood by. The window, watching the city lights. Well, she mused without turning, took you long enough. I ignored her and looked at the imposter. He looked exactly like me. But his eyes, his posture, all wrong. Who the hell are you? I asked. The man smirked. A necessary illusion. Emma finally turned, walking toward me with slow, deliberate steps. Meet Daniel, she said, her voice dripping with amusement. I had him made. Made? I echoed. She smirked. Surgically, behaviorally, he's the perfect copy. She leaned in, her breath warm, against my ear. Even better than the original. I clenched my fists. Why? Emma stepped back, her smile widening. Because, darling, you were always a loose end, and now I don't need you anymore. A gun pressed against my back. Daniel's voice was calm. You've been replaced. My heart pounded. Emma tilted her head. Goodbye, Ryan. And then, the lights went out. The last move? I had anticipated a trap. I just hadn't expected this. But I came prepared. The second the lights cut, I dropped, sweeping. My leg out, taking Daniel down first. Gunshots rang out, but I was already moving. I tackled Emma, pinning her against the floor. Her breath was hot against my neck as she laughed. You're so predictable, she whispered. I grabbed her wrist, twisting the gun from her grip. And you're reckless. Footsteps. Security. Pounding on the door. Emma's breathing quickened. She knew she was out of time, her eyes locked onto mine. Let me go, Ryan. I hesitated, and that was all she needed. She kneed me in the stomach, twisted free, and vanished out the window. By the time security burst in, she was gone. Again. The aftermath, Daniel was arrested. Turns out, he had been running a long con under my name, Emma's final masterpiece. I sat in my hotel room, staring at the city lights, Emma's last words echoing in my head. Let me go, Ryan. I should have, but I wouldn't, because Emma was still out there, and if I knew one thing for sure, she wasn't done with me yet. Emma was gone. Again. But this time she hadn't just escaped. She had erased herself. No records, no paper trail, no digital footprint, even my best contacts. People who could track ghosts in the system came up with nothing. It was as if she had never existed, and yet I knew the truth. Emma wasn't gone. She was waiting. The message 2 months passed. Then a package arrived. No return address. Just a sleek black envelope with my name on it, placed directly on my desk. Inside was a single playing card, the Queen of Hearts, and scrawled across it, in delicate, familiar handwriting, "You're getting warmer." My heart pounded. Emma had left. Me a trail. Not to lose me, but to lead me. She wanted me to chase her, and she knew I would. The chase begins. I followed the clues. From hidden bank accounts in Monaco to a private yacht in the Maldives. Every step brought me closer, but never quite close enough. She was always one step ahead, always watching, always taunting. Then, in a quiet bar in Madrid, I met someone who changed everything. A man in a charcoal suit, pale eyes, a scar across his jaw. He slid into the booth across from me, setting down a single photograph. I picked it up. Emma, in a different city, different name, different life. He exhaled slowly. "You're not the only one looking for her." I narrowed my eyes. "Who are you?" His lips curved into a grim smile. "The man who intends to catch her first." And just like that, the game changed. The rival. His name was Victor Alden. Private intelligence, corporate espionage, the kind of man who didn't just track people, he owned them, and he wanted Emma dead. "You don't understand what she stole." "From me," he said, sipping his scotch. I leaned back, smirking. "Let me guess. Money? Secrets? Your heart?" Victor chuckled darkly. If only it were that simple. I studied him. "What did she take?" His eyes flickered. Then he stood, tossing a business card onto the table. "When you realize what she's really up to," he said, "you'll want her gone just as much as I do." And then he walked away. I picked up the card. One word was printed on it: Vienna. The final move? I found her in Vienna, sitting at an outdoor cafe, sipping espresso like she didn't have half the world hunting her. I took the seat across from her. She didn't even look up, just smiled. "Took you long enough," she murmured. I exhaled, shaking my head. "You never stop running, do you?" She finally met my gaze. "I don't run, Ryan. I move forward." I placed Victor's card on the table. "He's coming for you," she smirked. "He can try." I studied her, searching for the lie. "Emma, what did you do?" For the first time, a flicker of something passed through her eyes. Not fear, regret. She leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. "I took something I shouldn't have." A chill ran down my spine. Before I could press her, she stood, placed a hand against my cheek, and whispered the last thing I ever expected. "I did it for you." Then, just like that, she was gone, and I was left with a single terrifying realization. Emma wasn't just running, she was hiding, and whatever she had taken, it was big enough to destroy us both. Vienna was supposed to be the end, but it was just the beginning. Emma was running, not from me, not from Victor, but from something bigger. And now, I was caught in the middle of it. The warning. I didn't sleep that night. Emma's words echoed in my head. "I did it for you." What the hell did that mean? What had she stolen? And why did I have a sinking feeling that I was already too deep? I was pouring whiskey when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then I saw the text. "Ryan, leave this alone. You have 24 hours. After that, I can't help you. No name. Just an address in Berlin and an attached photo of me, dead, lying, in a pool of blood." My stomach tightened. This wasn't a warning. It was a promise. The trap eye took the first flight to Berlin. Jonathan wasn't happy about it. "Ryan, for the love of God, walk away," he said over the phone. "This isn't just some con. This is something else." I didn't answer, because I already knew that. Emma's game had always been about control, power plays, deception, manipulation. But this was survival, and if Emma was afraid, then so was I. The meeting. The address led me to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Berlin, because of course it did. I stepped inside, hand on my concealed gun. The air smelled like dust and rusted, metal footsteps. A figure emerged from the shadows. Victor. He wasn't alone. 2 men flanked him. Military posture, hands resting near their holsters. I forced a smirk. "What, no champagne? I was expecting more of a welcome." Victor didn't smile. "Do you have any idea what she stole?" he asked. I shrugged. "Enlighten me." Victor pulled out a folder, tossed it onto a nearby crate. I opened it, and everything stopped. Bank records, Swiss accounts, offshore transfers, amounts so large they didn't seem real, and then a classified government document. Emma's name was at the top, so was mine. I felt my pulse in my ears. "What the hell is this?" I asked, voice tight. Victor exhaled. "A blueprint for something dangerous, something that can bring down powerful people. Emma didn't just steal money, Ryan." His eyes locked onto mine. "She stole a kill list, the real game." My breath caught. Emma hadn't just conned some rich idiot. She had stolen from the kind of people who don't forgive, people who made Victor look like a Boy Scout. And now, she had put both of us on their radar. Victor's voice was calm. "You want to live? You give her up." I clenched my fists. I should have said yes. But Emma's voice echoed in my head. "I did it for you." I closed the folder, looked Victor dead in the eyes, and smiled. "You're gonna have to try harder than that." His expression darkened. "Then you've made your choice." I nodded, and then I ran. The final chase Berlin blurred behind me. I had hours, maybe less, before Victor sent his people after me. I needed to find Emma before they did. The last clue she left me? A name. Valencia. It wasn't just a city. It was a person. And whoever they were the key to everything. I punched in the next flight out, because this wasn't just about catching Emma anymore. This was about saving her. And if I was too late, then we were both already dead. I barely made it out of Berlin. Victor had people everywhere. Airport security, border checkpoints, even street cameras. But I was used to being hunted, and I knew how to disappear. The flight to Valencia. The name wasn't just a place. It was a person. Someone. Emma wanted me to find. Someone who held the truth. I had no idea who they were, what they knew, or why Emma had left me this single thread to follow. But one thing was certain. Whoever they were dangerous. The arrival, I landed in Spain just before dawn. The address Emma had hidden in the bank records led me to a secluded villa deep in the countryside. No security, no guards, just silence, and an open door, inviting me in. I stepped inside, gun raised, dim lighting, the scent of old books and expensive whiskey. And then, a voice. "I was wondering when you'd show up." I turned sharply. A woman sat in a high-backed leather chair, sipping red wine, dark eyes, silver hair, Valencia. She smiled as if she already knew everything. "You must be Ryan." The truth. I didn't lower my gun. "Where is she?" I demanded. Valencia chuckled softly. "Emma? Oh, darling, she's been playing a game far bigger than you realize." I clenched my jaw. "Then explain it to me." She took another slow sip of wine. Then she dropped a file onto the table. Thick, old. I hesitated, then I opened it, and my blood ran cold, because inside was my name, pages of surveillance reports, psychological profiles, a detailed breakdown of my habits, my life, my weaknesses. Someone had been watching me for years, before Emma, before any of this. This wasn't just about her. I had been part of the plan all along. I looked up, my pulse pounding. "What the hell is this?" Valencia leaned back, crossing her legs. Her smile was razor sharp. "The reason Emma never really left you." She tilted her head. "The reason she saved you." And then, she said something that changed everything. "Ryan, you were the real target all along." The final betrayal? Everything crashed into place. Emma hadn't just stolen a kill list. She had stolen my past. And now, someone wanted it back. Valencia leaned forward, her voice soft. "You were never chasing Emma, darling." She smirked. "She was trying to protect you." I exhaled, gripping the edge of the table. If that was true, then I had made a huge mistake. Because now Victor wasn't just hunting Emma, he was coming for me, and I had just walked straight into the fire. The silence between Valencia and I was suffocating. Her words hung in the air like a weight, pressing down on me. She was trying to protect you. But from what? From whom? I could feel the walls closing in, the truth slipping further from my grasp, with every passing second. I had been chasing shadows, playing Emma's game without understanding the stakes. She hadn't been trying to destroy me. She had been trying to save me from a danger far worse than Victor. A chill ran down my spine. And then Valencia stood. She walked toward the fireplace and tossed a log into the flames. "You don't get it, do you?" she said, her voice steady. "You weren't just some innocent bystander in this world, Ryan. You were groomed for it. You were chosen." I shook my head, trying to make sense of the mess that was my life. "You're saying I've been part of this from the start?" Valencia's eyes gleamed. "Oh, Ryan, it wasn't just Emma who was a part of something bigger. You've been part of it, too." I stepped back, my hand instinctively reaching for the gun at my side. "Who the hell are you?" I demanded. She smirked. "Let's just say I'm an old friend of your family, the family secret." Her words hit like a freight train. "Old friend of my family?" I repeated, trying to keep my voice steady. "You're telling me my family—" She cut me off, her face hardening. "It's not just about Emma, it's about your legacy." I was about to ask what the hell she meant, but something in my gut told me I already knew. Everything that had happened, the strange coincidences, the shadows I had always felt lurking at the edges of my life, it wasn't random. I had been part of a plan that began before I ever even understood what was happening. My heart raced. "What are you talking about?" Valencia's smile was cold. "You were always meant to lead, Ryan, the perfect heir, the right bloodline." A tremor passed through me as her words sank in. I wasn't just a pawn in someone else's game. I had been the king all along. "Your father," she said, "was part of a powerful organization. And you—" She pointed a finger at me. "You've been groomed for this world your entire life. But not like your father. You were supposed to be the one who rose above it all." I was reeling, but Valencia didn't stop. "Emma wasn't just your lover, Ryan. She was your protector. She tried to keep you out of the system." She paused, her gaze narrowing. "But now it's too late. The system's claws are already in you." I stumbled back, my mind whirling. My father had been part of something dark, something secret. But what was it? The truth unraveled. Valencia's face softened for a split second, like she almost felt sorry for me. "Your father didn't die by accident, Ryan." Her voice was low, laced with venom. "He was removed. You were supposed to take his place. But instead, you went off script." I grabbed the edge of the table, my knuckles white. "Removed? How?" Valencia's eyes flashed with something. Anger? Regret? Do you remember how you've always felt like something was missing? That no matter how hard you tried, you could never escape those whispers in the dark? She leaned in closer, her eyes gleaming. You didn't run from it. You ran toward it. My pulse pounded. I knew it. The truth was there, just out of reach. She stepped back, lifting a hand to her lips as though weighing her next words. You were never meant to escape, Ryan. You were meant to rule. I couldn't breathe. No, this isn't real. I'm not. She held up a hand. The organization, Ryan. The one your father built. It's not just about money. It's not just about power. It's about control. Control over governments, markets, people. My stomach twisted. You were born into this world, whether you liked it or not. The moment of choice, I turned to walk away. I had to get out of there. But then, Valencia's voice cut through me like a blade. You want to stop running? I froze. I knew exactly what she was asking. Then you need to kill him. My heart stopped. I turned slowly, looking at her, not trusting my own voice. Kill who? Victor Alden, she said. He's the only one who can stop you from assuming control. He's the one who has your future in his hands. I laughed, bitterly. I thought you hated him, Valencia smiled. You think he wants to see you rise to the top? He wants to control you, Ryan. He always has. Her words echoed in my mind like a loop. And as I thought about it, about the web Emma had tried to save me from, about my father's secret past, about Victor Alden, the pieces finally clicked. Victor had been hunting me all along, not because he wanted me dead, but because he needed to control me. The final decision, I was at a crossroads. I could let the system swallow me whole, or I could finally destroy it, destroy Victor, and take control of my own destiny. But there was a catch. To defeat him, I'd have to become exactly what he feared. I turned to Valencia. What do I need to do? Her smile was cold, triumphant. You have to become the king.